What's up, everybody? Ransom Reviews back. NBA season is about to start, so I really wanted to get my power rankings by conference done before opening tip. It's going to be a crazy season, 72 games instead of 82, weird flight schedules, a lot of back-to-backs, or basically one day of rest in between games, really no time to practice. Nobody is ready. Who knows if it's even going to happen? It's going to be wild. But with all of that stuff being said, I did still attempt to put these teams in order. That is what a power ranking is. So let's check it out. Let's start with the East. Although I really should save it for last to hide the depths of my depression. All right. So number one in the East, I have the Milwaukee Bucks. They had an interesting offseason. They obviously did the big trade for Drew Holiday, where they flipped Bledsoe and like 7 million picks. And they also tried to snatch Bogdanovich from Sacramento, but they bungled that deal. If they could have pulled the Bogdanovich stuff off as well, what a great offseason that would have been for the Bucks. Now, even though they messed that up and it definitely hurt them, Giannis did still sign his extension with the team. So it seems like things have worked out almost as good as they could have hoped for. I think the Milwaukee Bucks are the clear number one in the East just because of continuity. They've been the best team in the East for 3 straight years now. Hasn't really been close. And I actually think they have a slight upgrade to their roster this year with Holiday over Bledsoe. At number 2, I have the Brooklyn Nets. Oh, I really want to hate this team so bad because Kyrie Irving is my third least favorite human being in the history of the world. I think it's like Hitler, Pol Pot, Kyrie. I think that's the order. But Kevin Durant has looked terrific. I really thought his days as a defensive player were done after the Achilles injury. I thought he'd be able to come back and still score 25 to 30 because he's 7 feet tall and he releases the ball up here. Can you see? Can you see where he's releasing the ball? No, you can't because it's way up there. But he's actually looked really good. It's only 2 preseason games, but he's looked fluid defensively, and that kind of changes the whole thing for me. As much as I want to hate this team because I hate Kyrie and I just foresee chemistry concerns for sure. Their bench that used to be their starters, I don't see them being happy in that role, but man, they're just too talented for me to say they're not the second best team in the East. They go deep. Their bench, like I said, used to be starters. You got Karis LeVert, you got Spencer Dinwiddie, you got Jarrett Allen, you've got Joe Harris. You have all these other players outside of Kyrie and Durant that really just make them. I don't think they're going to be very good defensively, and I'm not sure that it's going to matter. I think they're just going to score so many points. And again, going back to the fact that this season is so weird. There's not a lot of time for practices to figure out your schemes to get to gel. I think with teams like this that are led by 2 superstars that can kind of just freelance and do their own things, I actually think that really benefits teams like this. So, yikes. Watch out for the Brooklyn Nets. Ugh. Yeah, and I mean, even if Kyrie gets hurt, which I do think the artist formerly known as Kyrie will eventually get hurt as he does every season, Spencer Dinwiddie can just step in there and they probably won't miss a beat. So, really afraid of the Brooklyn Nets. At number 3, I have the Miami Heat. Well, they were just in the NBA Finals, albeit getting toasted like the bread on a Cubano. They lost Jay Crowder and they got Mo Harkless. I think it's a slight downgrade, but nothing too significant. So I would expect them to be very competitive again this year. At number 4, Toronto Raptors. I don't love them losing Serge Ibaka and Marc Gasol, but honestly, Gasol looked washed last year. And Baines, if healthy, is probably an upgrade. I trust their system and I trust their coach. I do think they'll miss Ibaka, but there's no way the Raptors aren't going to be in the mix this year. At number 5, I have the Philadelphia 76ers. They were a hot mess last year. They could still be a mess this year, but I think that Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey will bring a little bit of stability to this team. They did surround Embiid and Simmons with some shooters. They got Danny Green. They got Seth Curry. I don't know how much that will help because it kind of makes them worse defensively. I expect them to flip Simmons for Harden if this year heads south, but only if this year heads south. At number 6, I have the Boston Celtics. My team is a mess. With Tristan Thompson out and Kemba not back until at least February, we have no depth. We literally might start Javonte Green. Who, you ask? Exactly. We've had 7 picks in the last 2 years. 2 of them aren't ready. 1 is hurt. 1 is 4 feet tall with a 2-inch vertical. 1 belongs in China. 1 is the Israeli Yabusele. And 1 is 2 feet tall with a 4-inch vertical. Any team that puts Shemi Ojale on the floor for even a minute doesn't deserve to make the playoffs. It's going to be a rough year for us Celtics fans. At number 7, I have the Indiana Pacers. They'll probably be better than my Celtics, but we'll see what version of TJ Warren they get this year. We'll also see how healthy Oladipo is and how healthy Brogdon can stay. I do love Sabonis, though. He's a beast. At number 8, I have the Washington Wizards. I think the kid, Avdia, they drafted will help them a little bit. He's looked pretty good so far. Russ and Beal should be a pretty decent combo if they don't start hating each other immediately. I like Davis Bertans. I just think that Russ puts them into the conversation. Number 9, I have the Atlanta Hawks. I loved their offseason. Getting Bogdanovich, drafting a guy that can D up. They have a really interesting young team. I just don't think that they're quite ready. At number 10, I have the Orlando Magic. Aren't they always somewhere around here? What's changed in Orlando? Nothing? Okay. 10. At 11, I have the Charlotte Hornets. Thank God they got Gordon Hayward because that 11th spot in the East is so important. At number 12, I have the Chicago Bulls. I don't think the Bulls are good. It's just the rest of the East is so bad. At number 13, I have the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons are awful. They just aren't the Knicks. At number 14, I have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Guess what? The Cavaliers are also not the New York Knicks. Close, but they're not. At number 15, I have, you guessed it, the New York Knicks. Here they are, the New York power forwards. This team is awful. Thank God I can look at their drafts and feel marginally better about our drafts. I feel like every player in the NBA that probably shouldn't be in the NBA or that you're worried isn't going to make it is on this team. Let's move to the West. And as usual, the West is just much tougher than the Eastern Conference. We'll start with the Lakers. At number 1, the Lakers were one of the few elite teams that undoubtedly got better. I think they're heads and shoulders above the rest of the league right now. I am wildly depressed. Don't let this smile fool you. I actually thought last year that the Lakers weren't going to be the best team in the West because I just didn't like their team outside of LeBron and AD. I thought they were a mess, and yet they still won the championship. This year, I look at the pieces they have outside of LeBron and AD, and I'm like, oh, God, that looks great. So I don't want to talk about it, okay? Lakers, number 1. Number 2, the Clippers. I don't love the moves the Clippers did and didn't make, but I still think that their two-way potential keeps them probably at the top of the West, although I could see them slipping to 3 or 4. At number 3, maybe my first surprise, I have the Portland Trail Blazers. I really loved their offseason moves, getting Covington, Derek Jones Jr., Harry Giles, Enes Kanter, and they have Nurkic and Hood finally healthy, and they have Gary Trent Jr. coming off the bench. And, of course, everybody knows about McCollum and Lillard. I like the Blazers. Their issue last year was defense. I think they got some guys that can D up. We'll see if that makes a difference when these games start. At number 4, I have the Denver Nuggets. They lost Jeremy Grant, and they really need Michael Porter Jr. to step into that third star role. I think he can, but he's an interesting player. He has loads of potential and scoring ability, but sometimes he has no idea what he's doing on the basketball court. So if he can get into that third star role this year, then the Nuggets could be absolutely great. Again, even if he can't quite figure it out, the Nuggets are going to be solid. At number 5, I have the Utah Jazz. Is Mike Conley washed? I guess that's what we call a rhetorical question. I thought he was last year, and I still think he probably is. But the Jazz were really solid last year, and I expect them to be really solid again this year. At number 6, I have the Dallas Mavericks. Luka is one of the best players in the league. But will they ever be able to depend on Porzingis? I also felt like a lot of the moves they made in the offseason were sidesteps. They traded offense for defense. I'm not sure it made them any better. At number 7, I have the Golden State Warriors. They're going to miss Klay a lot. And no one has any idea what James Wiseman will bring. But Steph is still one of the best players in the league, and I think he will make them competitive. At number 8, the final playoff spot in the West goes to the Phoenix Suns. I think adding Chris Paul gets them into the playoffs, but the West is tough, and it does look like they whiffed on their draft pick this year. At number 9, I have the Houston Rockets. Am I crazy having the Houston Rockets miss the playoffs? Maybe. Probably. But that fat douche, James Harden, is giving me bad vibes, and I'm not even his teammate. John Wall has looked okay so far, but he's a definite downgrade on Westbrook. That's best case scenario. And while I like taking a flyer on DeMarcus Cousins, and Christian Wood was an excellent free agent signing, I just think this team is a mess. They need Kyrie over here burning sage in the Houston locker room. At number 10, I have the New Orleans Pelicans. Zion has looked amazing so far. I hope and pray he can stay healthy. I don't think this team is ready to win yet. I do think they will be fun to watch, and Steven Adams helps them be more competitive. But again, the West is just tough. At number 11, I have the Memphis Grizzlies. I also like the Grizzlies, a fun, young team. Ja Morant is a beast, but the West is too tough as usual, and because of that, I think the Grizz suffer. At number 12, the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs are so boring, but I do love their draft pick, Devin Vassell. In fact, I think he might be my favorite player out of the draft last year. He is 3-and-D, maybe the best version of a 3-and-D player we're going to see. I mean, Kawhi used to be that guy, the prototypical 3-and-D, but let's be honest, he has evolved beyond that. Will Vassell evolve beyond it? I mean, obviously, it's the Spurs connection, all that stuff, yada, yada, yada. Who knows? What I see from Vassell right now is a 6'7" shooting guard that can knock down threes and plays terrific defense already as a rookie. I love that guy. At number 13, I have the Sacramento Kings. I still haven't seen anything from Bagley to get me that excited. I like Fox and Hield, but don't love them. I like their pick Halliburton as well, but I just don't think this team is very good. At number 14, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. We went from Sacramento being like not very good to the Minnesota Timberwolves being pretty terrible. I don't think this team will ever be good. Sorry, Karl Anthony Towns is a sieve defensively. D'Angelo Russell is allergic to the free throw line, and their new draft pick doesn't even like basketball. They drafted a guy who doesn't like basketball. Number 15, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. What a weird team. They have like 7 players and 400 draft picks. I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and I actually think the 2 draft picks they got this year, the 2 players they drafted, look all right. but this is a team that was built intentionally to not win. So maybe we should reward them for the fact they're going to be very good at not winning this year. And there it is, my power rankings for the 30 NBA teams. The season starts December 22nd, and it's just going to be the weirdest, funnest, most depressing NBA season ever. I honestly have no idea if all the games are going to get played or how it's going to work out. I hope everyone stays safe. I hope my Celtics aren't the pile of dog poop that I really think and feel they are. And I hope that somehow the Nets fall apart because I hate you, Kyrie. But other than that, I think it should be really exciting. I know a lot of people knocked this year's draft class as not having these super exciting superstar players, and I think that's fair. But I do think you're going to see a lot of solid role players come out of this year's draft, and that'll be fun to see who those guys are. So if you made it this far, drop me a comment. Let me know if you think any of my rankings are way off. I think I did this last year as well, and the only team I can remember really whiffing on was the Miami Heat. I was totally wrong about the Miami Heat last year. It happens. So we'll see what happens this year. Let's see. Maybe James Harden comes back and does a fitness montage and makes them the 3 seed in the West, and these power rankings go up in smoke. But that's what we do them for. It's just for fun. I should have some more NBA content soon. So stick around for that, and I'll see you next time on Rants and Reviews.